What is up, DeFire family? It is me, John Casey, your host. Welcome to another tutorial. So today I'm going to cover the importance of coloration and coloring your sounds. And this can be achieved through multiple things, but the main aspect is the discrepancies between digital EQs and analog modeled EQs or hardware emulation plugins. Just a bit of information behind each. So with digital plugins, right, they have different algorithms. Well, each of them obviously have different algorithms. But then you have analog modeled plugins that are modeled after actual hardware. These have way more. They're a bit more complex in the ways of if it's a saturator, it'll have a different algorithm compared to a digital saturator. Obviously, they're all digital, but it's about the algorithms behind them. So EQ, for example, you have parametric EQ, which your regular EQ in EQ8, FabFilter Pro 3 or whatever, and then you have or graphic EQs. And those, you can have digital graphic EQs too, from what I've seen, like Equivocal, amazing piece of hardware that is. But the analog model EQs have a different algorithm, and anything that's analog modeled kind of provides, as I've said, coloration. So if you look at the whole Soundtoys catalog, I think, if I'm not mistaken, everything of theirs is modeled. Everything of theirs is modeled after hardware. So I'm going to go through a bit of the plugins and compare all their different sounds. So what we can do is we can do something on an instrument, so like a square wave, and then we can do something on a song or a mix or something. So it's important to know to differentiate between when to use it and how to use it. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So I've got a bunch of different EQs here, right? Let me just turn on my Cursor Pro. So I've got a bunch of different EQs here. Let me just change my look as well so you can see. Let's go. So we've got a FabFilter, and then Virtual Mix Rack by Slate Digital. A lot of Slate stuff is also analog modeled. EQ Citrel by Arturia. This is a preamp, but it also has EQing, so I'm going to try that out as well. And then probably the most powerful of all, it's by Purple. It's Purple P1, which is modeled after Pultec EQ. This one's quite expensive, but I'm gonna just go through each and their different characteristics. You might not hear a huge difference, but it goes a long way when producing and coloring your sounds in general. So let me just turn this off. What we have here is a basic square wave. And obviously each of them have different kinds of shelving. So each EQ has a different type of shelf, and they're not the exact same characteristics. So I'm not comparing a Pultec model EQ with a Pultec model EQ, but you will hear that they have different characteristics in general. The reason this is important is because, for example, instead of just making a sound louder with volume, you can use an EQ to boost certain frequencies in it, to make it louder, to boost its perceived loudness, and add color to it so it sits in the mix a bit better and it sounds more colorful and not either flat, thin, cold. Those are the kind of words I'll use in this. Same thing with different type of, let me just rename this, SAT for saturation. So let's go to Pro Q, right? So I have added a shelf in a way that emulates what the virtual mix rack would do, what the EQ Citral would do all that kind of stuff. So we'll go through and we'll see. Let's turn you on. So you can see, let's turn on span, just so you guys can have a view of what it's doing. I'll keep it up there. So this, you can see, it's boosting it, right? And it's objectively, what it's doing is just boosting the frequencies because it's a parametric EQ. It's not modeling any hardware, any of that kind of stuff. So it adds brightness, objectively. Now let's compare that to a virtual mix rack, which is the same thing. I'm adding 6 decibels at about 5 kilohertz. All right, and we can hear there's different tonalities in them. Let me just go 5 directly. There we go. So here's FabFilter. Here's virtual mix rack. So you can see objectively, they're almost doing the same thing, different kind of shelving, of course. But if you look at this, look at the general area just below the boost. Over here. And then when I switch, you can see it's adding, one could call it color. It's adding color to that. And you get the high end of that too. So let's try EQ Citral as well, which is modeled after a Siemens EQ, I think. I might be incorrect there. But this is at 5K with a 6 decibel boost as well. Different kind of shelving, you can see, but different characteristics as well. So this one's also quite thin. EQ Citral. See, this one's a bit more, it's a bit sharper on the high end because of how it's doing it, of course. But then we have just let's try a preamp, all right? Compare it to FabFilter. You can see similar. Let's compare that to the virtual mix rack. Almost a smoother kind of sound. And this is just on obviously a square wave. There are many different characteristics that would come in when you boost it on a mix or on a sample or all that kind of stuff. It translates differently. I just use a square wave so that you can get almost an objective view and a visual representation, and you can hear specifically what it's doing. And then you have, I call this the mother of all EQs for now, because it's expensive. But also what it does is, this is modeled after a Pultec EQ, which is one of the most renowned EQs used back in the day. And this one doesn't use an algorithm, it uses sampling. So let's just quickly run up a singing filter details. Anyway, they used to say it over here. Yeah, so you can get it now for 69 euros. I got it for 300. So if you want to get it now. Anyway, so what it does is it uses samples. I'm not too sure how that works, but I've seen all the reviews that this one is the closest analog modeled Pultec EQ. So boosting 6 dB after 5 kilohertz as well. You can even try attenuate. So this one has a more rounded character, and this I use on general mixes. It's super CPU intensive, so be aware of that. But that's one thing, right? Now let's do the low end just so you can kind of get an idea. Let's go down. Let's boost 30 at 6 dB. Let's see.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer in every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Okay, let's compare that to this. and it comes in handy. What are we doing? 30, right? 30 low shelf. Is it a shelf or is it a bell? I think it's a shelf. We can just compare the two anyway. Okay, let's move you around. Objectively, they're both boosting 6 dBs, but if you listen, it adds somewhat different kinds of harmonics and smoother. So let's see with this one. Let's boost you at 6 dB. I'm gonna hurry this up at 30, right? Yeah. So you see this one you have to push a bit more. But each of them have different kinds of color, alright? So let's boost you quickly, bring you down. This one, let's just do 50 and boost you at 6. So you have to go a bit further. Some of them sound smoother, some of them sound harsher, but now this is just giving you an idea of the different kinds of timbres that they have. Now, where and why would you use FabFilter? Where would you use Purple or Virtual Mix Track, all that kind of stuff? FabFilter, you can see, this is a precision EQ. This thing, you can go super deep, and you can make these dynamic and all that kind of stuff. So, making precision cuts and all that kind of stuff is very important. So you can't do that with analog model EQs. Let me not say can't, but a lot of them don't allow you to. This one is by Brainworks. It's called BX Digital. This is also hardware emulation. They do say it's hardware emulation, but I'm not too sure how accurate or what it's emulating. Let me say that. But this one as well, you can go in, listen to it, go in, cut out, hit a notch. Same thing, it models. I think it would have a different timbre than FabFilter, but same thing. You have knobs to use instead of actually drawing the actual stuffs, right? So you can get very precise with this. You can go in, draw this. Literally all this kind of stuff, right? This is cutting out, boosting, all that kind of stuff and those frequencies, but it's just literally volume wise, louder, softer. With these, you're adding color, right? So if I were to, in a mix, right, I want to, let's see here. If I want in a mix, so let me say I want to boost some high end. See, it's super CPU intensive. But you can hear that the high end on this, and then let's boost. Let's get FabFilter. Pro Q3. Let's do, what am I doing? 10K. 10,000. Let's do a shelf at 4 dB. Objectively doing the same thing. Let me throw you in. So I'll compare the two. This one's smoother, right? It's way smoother because it's emulating an actual Pultec EQ. So there's that, right? Why would you do that? So you'd use that in coloring your sounds, coloring your mix, your samples, all of that kind of stuff. That's why you do that. Let's quickly go over saturation as well. So why you would saturate and use analog model saturation and all that, and what's the word? Harmonics and preamps and all that kind of stuff, is because, for example, making something louder objectively isn't always the best route, the best option. So let's say you have a bass cut, right, like a boom in a song. Turning that up and making it louder obviously just takes whatever the frequencies are and loudens it, but sometimes that's not enough. So maybe you would take let's see, this is Omega Transformer. It's modeled after, I can't remember, but instead of making it louder, you saturate it and it becomes warmer. So instead of louder, it becomes warmer and it sits in the mix a bit better. And it starts boosting the frequencies, like even with, you get odd ordered harmonics and even ordered harmonics. Some things you can boost the even ordered harmonics in it so that you don't make everything louder. You just take the even ordered harmonics and you boost those, and it gives a nice sound to then adds to the mix. Or you can do the odd, or you can just boost it in total, in general. So instead of just making something louder, you can use saturation. So let's take this, for example. Let's see. Let's turn you off. Where is span? So we can see what it's doing. So let's compare this to just making it louder. Okay, let's get a utility. I kind of want to match the volume. You can see it's adding color towards the low mid range, and that could benefit in a song that you're using or making or something like that. So there's that. It sounds warmer. Objectively, you can hear it sounds warmer. And then you have, let's try a little radiator. So I'm just going to boost the input, just drive it into radiator more. Compare. Radiator is a bit warmer. Add bass. All that kind of stuff. Then you can have, let's try saturator. You can hear it sounds a little bit flatter. So forget the volume, right? Listen to radiator. And listen to saturator. Look at how they look here. Look at those harmonics. Look at how they fall, right? You have different types of clipping, but look at this. Keep an eye out on this area. Maybe you want that. Maybe you want to boost those harmonics in the sound itself. So instead of making something louder, you can boost it and color it. This is everything here. The main word in which I'm using here is coloring. You're coloring the sounds with analog model EQs. You're coloring it with saturators. You're coloring all that kind of stuff. Now, for example, if I take a saturator, remember what we saw with the saturator now, with little radiator and saturator. Those kind of harmonics, right? In case maybe you want to saturate your song a bit, I would suggest using radiator instead of saturator, because saturator is obviously completely digital. That radiator is analog model. So you would then bring about frequencies in your mix that flourish in the song instead of getting taken out. So for example, if you use a saturator, you're boosting certain frequencies and it starts clipping. But with the radiator, let's say those frequencies start to sound warmer and it fills up the mix a bit better. Soundtoy stuff, you can use it on mix for sure. I'm not saying don't use it, but a lot of them it's for coloring specific sounds like guitars, drums, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully this gives you an idea about why you should color your sounds instead of just making them louder and using digital EQs to boost certain frequencies. Because each instrument, piece of software has different characteristics. I've got a huge library of plugins that I can choose from, but you don't need that. Just have a look at something that resonates with you and see. So we can even look at Virtual Mix. Each of these saturation units provide different kinds of timbres. And have a look. Slate Digital's got a bunch of stuff here. You can have a look at theirs. But I think the main thing to take away from all of this is that it's more than just volume and frequencies. It's about coloring. It's about placement. It's about all those kind of things that really just bring out nicer frequencies within, or more pleasant, not nice, it's not a great word to use, more pleasant frequencies that fit your song. And why would you use a parametric EQ or a digital EQ to boost a high frequency when you can use an analog model EQ to boost those frequencies and add a nice rounded, more natural sound? Because at the end of the day, we make electronic music, but the frequencies are still the frequencies. You know, it can be a real guitar being played or a freaking Skrillex bass or something. The frequencies that you hear are still objectively the same. It's sound pressure or pressure of air, sorry. And